Am I the asshole for getting someone fired because they pretended to know the language? English is not my first language. I, 27 female, decided to apply for my dream job. I have met all the criteria and one of them was to be proficient in my native language, Russian, which I am, since I've grown up in the country speaking and writing in it and have finished school and university where obviously all the subjects are taught in Russian, except English and French, German language classes. I ended up securing the interview with this place and needed to demonstrate the knowledge of Russian, so the person who did the interview started asking me questions in it. However, I could barely understand her. Not only the accent made it incredibly difficult, but the fact that she couldn't build a sentence, but also used incorrect forms of the words and the pronunciation was totally wrong too. In short, it sounded as if she was randomly putting the words in Google Translate and was trying to repeat them over. I have answered all her questions, however I've also noticed she barely made any notes. I decided to let it pass and wait for a verdict. After about 3 months of chasing in silence, I got an email saying I wasn't successful and the reason was that they believed my knowledge of Russian language was poor and insufficient for the job and not up to their standards, according to the interviewer. Of course I was confused, since the lady who interviewed me could barely speak the language herself. So I have decided to leave feedback about my experience on one of the job sites, which was made to share info about working at the job and interview process. My review received a fair amount of traction and last week Monday I ended up getting a call from the higher-ups, who listened to my feedback and opened the investigation. On Friday I have found out the lady who interviewed me was dismissed. She and her friends were messaging me on social media calling an asshole, because this job was her only source of income and was struggling. I am now feeling guilty about this and feel like I was an asshole for writing about my experience. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. She is scamming her company by pretending to speak a language that she has minimal fluency in. Imagine how many other people she's turned down for jobs. She probably thought that she would be better off hiring people who spoke badly because they wouldn't be able to find her out. She thought she was the gatekeeper and didn't realize that it was a super dumb idea. The fact that it gained traction probably means Original Poster isn't the only one experiencing this. This would mean that this employer is claiming to provide services to Russian speakers, but doesn't. Scamming your job is generally cool and fun, but if this particular employer is, say, claiming to provide information and resources to vulnerable immigrant communities but then hanging them out to dry so this particular lady can run her scam, she's gotta go. I'm glad you managed to say F capitalists, but disenfranchised communities still deserve resources. All in one reply. In Ta, you were denied a job based on a lie that wasn't yours. That's not on you. It could have been your only source of income too. Aren't most full-time jobs the only source of income for the person in them? It's such an odd point for the interviewer to make, as though she is distinguishing herself as a rare exception among the massive hordes of independently wealthy employed people who only work a job for funsies. Exactly. It's pointless to get sympathy points like that when OP is also looking for a job and it may have been vital to them. Not the asshole. She shouldn't have pretended to know a language she wasn't fluent in, and it's her own fault for being sacked. She could have easily had avoided this by not pretending and having someone else do the interview that did know Russian. Interviewer, upon getting their job, should have at least studied Russian after the fact to at least get by not the asshole. That's what I was thinking too. If speaking Russian is so important to your business that you conduct interviews in Russian, wouldn't you at least try to become more proficient? She has no one to blame but herself. Not the asshole, you missed out on a wonderful sounding job, due to a person who clearly wasn't up to scratch and had no business interviewing someone fluent in the language. I really hope they offer Original Poster the job again, since the only reason they weren't hired was because of their bad Russian. Not the asshole. She isn't qualified to do her job, and lied about the results of the interview. The business that employs her requires a knowledge of the language and she's pulling the wool over their eyes. Not your concern, and I hope you're able to interview again. How the fuck do people get away with this kind of shit? How do people secure jobs while bullshitting that much? This person was in the position to hire people and faked knowing a whole ass language. Not the asshole. Original Poster. You did every other candidate a favor. Who knows how many people were passed over for jobs with this loon being the hiring person. My mill dropped out of college and never was certified to do exams for life insurance that includes blood testing and shit. I'm assuming it's like what phlebotomists do. She made up a resume years ago that lied, stating she had the credentials. No one ever checked. She did it for like 30 years. She doesn't work anymore, but it always infuriated me. She also read EKGs too. This is the kind of shit that gives me nightmares. Meanwhile, in the early days of my career, they were calling my ancestors, profs, first-grade teachers to make sure I am who I am and am certified as such, and I do absolutely nothing customer, client-facing. Not the asshole. She took a job she shouldn't have, and the consequence of that is that the team suffers. She would have been found out eventually. Not only that, but she specifically is the reason you didn't get the job, because she was afraid she would have been found out had you been hired. She was trying to keep a job she didn't deserve, leaving other more qualified people to suffer the consequences. I hope they reconsider your application. And don't feel bad about her. I'm sure she'll find another scam soon enough. Not the asshole. She and her friends were messaging me on social media calling an asshole, because this job was her only source of income and was struggling. And there were probably struggling people who could have used that job who she denied. If the job was really so important to her, and she absolutely had to lie to keep her source of income, then in her spare time after getting this new job responsibility, she should have been getting language lessons, Rosetta Stone or something else online, instead of relying on whatever translate thing she was using. I'm curious if she denied the job because she was afraid that her fraud would be exposed, or if it's Dunning-Kruger and she thought her 6 months of Duolingo gave her enough knowledge to spot whether someone knew Russian. We don't know if Russian knowledge was part of the interviewer's job description beyond finding new candidates. Not the asshole. She was being dishonest and threw you under the bus to save herself. She got what she deserved. I'm sorry you lost out on the job. Not the asshole. It sounds to me like she denied you a job opportunity because she was afraid that you would know that she cannot speak Russian. And for that, she is a bad person and deserves to be fired. Not the asshole. Her poor language skills made you miss out on your dream job. That's not on you, you were simply being honest. Original poster. You might want to email that same higher up to see if you can re-interview, seeing as this wasn't your fault. Good luck. Came here to suggest this, too. Not the asshole. This is really one of those situations where what's good for the goose is good for the gander. This lady denied you a job because she was incompetent at hers. She can clearly go lie and get another job somewhere else. Not the asshole is a man who uses Google Translate to communicate and build a second language. Yikes. Good warning signs. She wasn't fluent in the language. She lied. If would be figured out eventually. What was her plan? Take a job where she needs to speak Russian and hope she never runs into a native speaker? Not the asshole. If she's getting paid for a skill she claims to have them, she needs to possess that skill. You lost out on a job BC. She lied. Not the asshole. You didn't get her fired. She got herself fired. Not the asshole. Think about other potential interview candidates who may be counting on getting the job as a source of income because they are struggling and never got a fair chance. Not the asshole. The only reason you didn't get the job was because she knew you were fluent in Russian and that she was lying. She was trying to make sure she didn't get exposed and it backfired on her. Oh well. Not the asshole. You were overlooked for a position on the grounds of your inexperience or lack of knowledge. All the while, the person who was the judge of your ability was the one who was lacking. If it wasn't you, it would have been someone else. This person's chickens just came home to roost. Not the asshole. It's not your fault that she didn't have the skills to do her job successfully and lied to her employers, causing you to lose out on a potentially good job. Sounds like she played the lying game and won her prize accordingly. Not the asshole.